The moon is going to crash into the Earth, causing the mass destruction of the planet. Everything and everyone will cease to exist in just 3 days. You are the only one who can stop it. This is, of course, the overarching plot of my favorite Zelda game, The Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask. Wandering around Clocktown and talking to the various people inhabiting this place gives you a peek into daily life in this close-knit community. The mailman is this eccentric, duty-bound worker who shakes his tail feathers across town every day on the same schedule. The local kids have formed a gang they call the Bomber's Secret Society of Justice. The Stockpot Inn is a cozy, family-owned hotel where travelers can rest their head for a night or two while passing through. The owners consist of Anju, a beautiful yet timid young woman, her caring but stern mother, and her dementia-affected grandmother. There's surprisingly a lot to learn about them, like how Anju is having second thoughts about her upcoming wedding, or how the death of her father Tortoise is the reason the family business shifted from being a cafeteria to an inn. Anju is a terrible cook. If you read Granny's diary, you'll see that despite her actually seeming to be losing her memory, she also fakes the severity of her disorder in order to avoid eating Anju's rather pitiful cooking. Kafei is a handsome young man who is engaged to Anju. Their wedding is set to take place during the town's annual festival, the Carnival of Time. His father is the mayor of Clocktown, Mayor Dotor, and his mother, Madame Aroma, helps manage town events. There's just one problem, other than the moon falling down. Kafei has gone missing. His disappearance has left his fiancée Anju questioning the validity of their love. Anju's mother believes him to be a runaway groom. His own mother is asking everyone she can to search for him. But Kafei is still in town. Although he disappeared over a month ago, Kafei is still in town, living in a secret hideout behind the curiosity shop. After investigating a mysterious figure, you meet Kafei and learn of his dilemmas. There are 2 reasons why he can't reveal himself to his loved ones. The first is that his wedding ceremony sun mask has been stolen. Without it, he won't be able to match Anju's moon mask as proof of his love for her. The bigger one, however, is that he's been magically de-aged by someone called the Skull Kid to a childlike state. Kafei asks you to deliver a pendant to his beloved Anju in order to reassure her of his affection. Anju and her family are considering evacuating town on account of the moon, but upon receiving the pendant, Anju decides to stay in Clocktown. You help Kafei locate the thief who stole his sun mask. On the final day before the moon is going to crash into the Earth, the 2 of you sneak into his lair, and after navigating a series of booby traps, you get the mask back. Her family has evacuated, yet Anju remains in her room waiting. A mere few hours until the world reaches an untimely end, and she waits. However, she does not wait for long. Soon, Kafei arrives and the 2 meet in an embrace. They exchange their masks, the symbols of their love, tell you to take refuge, and assure you they will greet the morning together. This cute little love story helps to connect you to the world of Clocktown and Termina. It forces you to run around and talk to characters who aren't any part of the game's main storyline. You take in their unique personalities and work with them towards this happy ending. But what if I told you that this happy ending isn't real? Because right about now, you're probably saying to your screen,
"That's nice, Internet Man, but what does this have to do with time loops?"
And to that I would say,
You know how long I've been waiting for this? Woo, I'm about to make a name for myself here.
the main goal of Majora's Mask is to stop the moon from crashing. The way that you do this is by trekking to the 4 major temples of the land, defeating their bosses, and calling upon the giants of each region. The raw strength of the giants can stop the moon, but only if all 4 of them are present. By toppling a dungeon boss and collecting their remains, you free the giant of that region from imprisonment. But you only have 3 days before the moon crashes. So how can you possibly defeat all 4 bosses in time? By playing what's called the Song of Time on your ocarina and resetting back to the dawn of the first day. When you collect a boss's remains, you hold on to it even if you reset time. Therefore, you can complete a dungeon, reset time, then start heading to the next dungeon. But what does resetting time mean for other stuff? If you help Anju and Kafei reunite and then reset time, what happens to them? Well, you simply abandon them. Nothing about their story is going to help you save the world from the falling moon. So you just move on. You go through all the trouble of the quest I just went over, only to reset them back to square one. The game being set in a time loop turns the Anju and Kafei quest into this almost Shakespearean tragedy of two lovers who can never truly be reunited. Because as soon as they are, that happiness is ripped from them as you go back in time. They'll never really live out that reality where you got involved. Without you, Anju will evacuate town with her family, because she never received the pendant from Kafei because you never delivered Anju's letter to him. Anju and Kafei are one story that the game is able to give importance to through the time loop system. The nature of the game is that you cannot possibly help everyone. There's simply not enough time in a 3-day cycle. The two of them serve as a small yet important reminder of what you're fighting for. By giving them the only time that you have instead of fighting in dungeons, you're saying that they are important. Their love is worth dedicating a full 3-day cycle to. I feel like this is the appeal of time loop stories in a nutshell. There's so much going on around you at all times, and by repeating the same period of time over and over, you can look at life through 100 different lenses. Sam Winchester wakes up on a Tuesday morning in a nondescript motel room to the sound of Heat of the Moment, the 1982 single by English prog rock group Asia. He turns his head to see his older brother and fellow monster hunter Dean tying his shoes and jamming to the music. The two of them get dressed and get breakfast at a local diner. Dean orders the Pig and a Poke Tuesday special and black coffee. Sam matches Dean's coffee but opts for a short stack of pancakes. The reason they're even in town in the first place is to investigate a man's disappearance whose last known location is a nearby attraction called the Broward County Mystery Spot. When the waitress brings the coffee, she drops a bottle of hot sauce that she'd brought for Dean's special. As they walk down the street after breakfast, Dean dismisses the validity of such an attraction. Then the two discuss the likelihood that the man's disappearance is a supernatural occurrence. Throughout this exchange between the brothers, a few things happen to and around them. A golden retriever barks at them, a blonde woman carrying a stack of papers bumps into Dean. They pass by two movers struggling to carry a large piece of furniture through a doorway. They end their discussion by agreeing to investigate the mystery spot later that night, and we jump right to that. The two boys encounter the owner of the mystery spot brandishing a shotgun, and after attempting to de-escalate the situation, the shotgun goes off by mistake, hitting Dean. Sam runs to Dean's aid, tells the man to call 911, but the wound is fatal. Sam holds his brother as he takes his last few breaths. Dean closes his eyes for his final time, and we go to the title sequence. Sam Winchester wakes up on a Tuesday morning in a nondescript motel room to the sound of Heat of the Moment, the 1982 single by English prog rock group Asia. He turns his head to see his older brother and fellow monster hunter Dean tying his shoes and jamming to the music. In this slight twist in the time loop subgenre, the person trapped in a time loop is not the one dying. If you look at other examples like the 2017 film Happy Death Day, or the 2019 Netflix series Russian Doll, or even the time loop catalyst film Groundhog Day, typically if time loops involve death, the one dying is the person trapped in the time loop. But in this 2008 episode of Supernatural, Sam is trapped in a loop watching his brother Dean die. The Winchesters are complex individuals.
You peed yourself.
Of course I peed myself. Man gets hit by a car, you think he has full control over his bladder? Come on!
The world of Supernatural in many ways is like our own, but there's a secret society in the shadows where monsters such as vampires, werewolves, and other creatures purely of legend are lurking in the background and slaughtering the innocent. Sometimes for sustenance, other times for pleasure or revenge, or sometimes all of the above. Sam and Dean carry this knowledge on their backs and do what they can to save as many innocent people as possible, but it's a heavy weight to bear. The world of monsters creates a level of fear and distrust that when things are boiled down completely, the only thing Sam or Dean has in the world is the other guy in the Impala, which is why they will do almost anything to keep each other alive, even if it means making deals with literal devils. This episode is under 40 minutes in length and plays out like a short film. The first half plays into the absurdity of what's happening to Sam and treats Dean's consistent yet ever-changing demise like a punchline for the audience. Effectively, I should add.
See? Different day already.
I'm not gonna die.
Dean. Dean?
The comedy in this episode is on point.
These tacos taste funny to you?
After the first time Sam resets, Sam seems a bit off because he's experiencing the craziest sense of deja vu, and Dean asks if he's alright. Sam replies saying,
Man, I had a weird dream.
and Dean, being Dean, says back,
Yeah? Clowns or midgets?
I know it's just a silly little line that effectively means nothing, but it actually does build Dean's character a little bit. For example, when Dean has weird dreams, we now know what kind of people show up in them. Remember when I said that time loops allow you to view life through 100 different lenses? Well, Sam does exactly that. After the comedy of the situation wears off, Sam and Dean sit down at the diner where Sam exposes just a taste of the information he's gathered about the people who eat breakfast at the diner on this particular Tuesday. I like this line where Sam gets snappy at the waitress, criticizing her archery skills.
I'd like is for you to log in some more hours at the archery range. You're a terrible shot.
How do you know that?
Lucky guess.
It's a line full of implication. It plants the idea in our heads that in one of these Tuesdays, somehow, Sam ends up in a situation where Doris's hobby presumably gets Dean killed. With the lines about the other patrons, you could assume that Sam simply spied on each individual, finding out some secret of theirs come nightfall. But the middle-aged waitress shooting Dean with a bow and arrow is so absurd that you have to wonder how that one went down. This episode doesn't play out like Supernatural episodes typically do. The standard formula for Supernatural is that the boys stumble upon a series of strange murders or disappearances, they investigate while posing as some kind of authority, typically FBI, and they find a ghost or vampire or some kind of killable monster. In this episode, they're already on a case, whereas they usually have to find one first. They spent the night at a motel prior to the start of the episode in order to investigate a man's disappearance, but that disappearance acts as a misdirect. The titular mystery spot is just a red herring for the boys to investigate so that Sam won't find the trickster creating the time loop who's hidden in plain sight. But at the same time, the disappearance was the work of the trickster himself and is the reason that when something is even slightly different, Sam knows what to do. After roughly 100 or so loops, the trickster either slips up or is tired of putting on this song and dance. Sam notices that a man who has eaten pancakes every single loop chose strawberry syrup instead of regular. Sam and Dean corner that man, who turns out to be the trickster known as Loki, and after Sam shows resolve to kill him, he snaps his fingers, freeing Sam from Tuesday. Sam rejoices over the song on the radio that's not Heat of the Moment, and traditionally, this would have been the happy end. Mystery Spot would have been a great episode had that been all there was to it, but the writers went the extra mile. With Sam no longer trapped in a time loop, Dean is held up by a local robber and killed, not on Tuesday, but Wednesday. We immediately get a 6-month time skip where we see that Sam has deteriorated mentally. His actions and thoughts are completely of one track. Find Loki, get Dean back somehow. Sam succeeds at ruthlessly taking down demons and a vampire nest all on his own. He lives a methodical, driven lifestyle void of joy or pleasure. The dude wakes up like Michael Myers, eats ground turkey and vegetables for dinner, and stares at his wall of news articles and maps looking for a thread to connect back to Loki, while polishing the barrel of his gun. Eventually, he receives a voicemail from the man who's like a second father to him, Bobby, who says that he's found him. Upon meeting up, Bobby tells Sam that they could summon Loki if they could get a gallon of fresh human blood, essentially bleeding a person dry. Sam is willing. Bobby convinces Sam to use his blood, and after a mild sense of hesitation, Sam actually stabs Bobby with a wooden stake, with his reason being,
Because you're not Bobby.
surprise, surprise, Bobby isn't Bobby. This was a setup by the trickster. All of this was Loki's ploy to make Sam realize how unhealthy of an attachment he has to his brother, but after coming to the quick realization that Sam is not going to stop hunting him, Loki simply concedes and resets things back to 6 months ago on Wednesday. Sam, relieved and delighted at the sight of his healthy brother, embraces him immediately upon waking up. Sam tells Dean not to leave the motel without him, and Dean picks up on Sam's mood. Something's a little off with Sam. We know what it is. The last 6 months he just lived that are still fresh on his mind. Sam got a real look into another timeline, another reality where Dean died tragically at the young age of 28. Sam experienced the process of grief, or some form of it. We do get the impression that he pushed the sadness down in order to stay focused on finding Loki, but that in itself is one of the ways that grief manifests. And now, the emotional whiplash of getting his happy ending, his perfect timeline, is bittersweet. The experiences he had were real and continue to haunt him. But in a split second, Sam decides that these memories are his burden to shoulder, because despite everything that Sam just went through, they technically won. So when Dean asks him if something else other than the constantly looping Tuesdays happened to him, with a 1,000-yard stare, he simply replies,
I just had a really weird dream.
and Dean, being Dean, says back,
Clowns are midgets.
Sam follows Dean out, flips the light switch off, and closes both the door and the episode. I find the choice of camera angle really interesting in this closing scene. We're looking at Sam from the corner of the room like how you would expect a security camera to be set up. I'm pretty sure it's the only scene in the entire episode where you actually see their motel room in full. You can see the tiny little bathroom where they brush their teeth, Dean's bed, the empty beer bottle still on the nightstand. To me, it really creates this feeling of closure. Everything that just happened here. And it's over. When Sam closes that door to end the episode, he traps us in here because the door of this little romp is closed. This episode was the inspiration I needed in order to make this video a reality. I had the idea of a time loop centered video years ago, but it wasn't until this one that I decided I absolutely had to make it happen. One thing I love about this episode is that it's not only a fun time, but it also has something to say about losing people. You don't know when or where you might lose someone, and you should never take the ones you love for granted. Maybe that's been said by other media and other people a million billion times, but it never stops being real and true. On top of that, maybe a hot take, but Sam's conversation with Loki and the hug that follows are maybe my favorite emotional scenes in the show.
I'm fighting for my life. Y'all killing me with this.
For me, the absolute peak of emotional writing doesn't come from the characters telling each other directly how they feel, it comes from the actions and expressions of the characters. What gets me is the desperation we see from Sam. There's so much emotion in how Jared Padalecki delivers the line,
He's my brother.
Loki was never going to be able to use reasoning and logic to convince Sam to stop hunting him because Sam is not hunting him based on reason and logic. He does not care what the consequences will be later because he will at least face them together with Dean. And the hug. The way Sam sees Dean and makes a beeline for the hug, despite them being men.
He just packed up and left, and then he hugged me.
That's sweet.
And we don't hug. I mean, we do, but only if it's literally the end of the world, you know?
As that clip from a much later episode implies, it's out of character for them to express their care for one another this way. But Sam doesn't even think about it because of what he just went through.
Dude, how many Tuesdays did you have?
Enough.
The emotional core of the Winchester brothership and the way it's portrayed in this episode is simply beautiful. Mystery Spot is close to being a perfect episode of television. With 10,000 IMDb ratings and an average score totaling 9.5 out of 10, I think most people agree with that statement. The comedy and aura of Mystique are excellent.
We can't even go out for breakfast! You'll thank me when it's Wednesday!
Whatever that means.
But for me, the character writing is what makes it so good. We have a solid idea of who Sam is by this point in the series, but this episode cements certain things we would have only been able to speculate on otherwise. If he loses Dean, he won't be able to properly grieve. He'll spend every waking moment looking for some kind of supernatural way to bring Dean back, because otherwise, he's all alone in this world. And as the future king of the pirates once spoke, being lonely is more painful than getting hurt. These time loop plotlines have the potential to be ridiculously good stories, but they don't always pull it off. I wasn't in love with how the show Russian Doll got a season 2 in the first place. Man, season 1 was good. Why couldn't they have just let it be over? Time loops can let the writers explore a single character in ways that traditional stories don't allow for. The existential loneliness that comes with being the only one who remembers that this moment has happened 100 times already is so damaging to one's psyche. I've talked a lot about anime on this channel, and there are some seriously good anime about time loops as well that touch on that. My two favorites would have to be Steins Gate and The Girl Who Leapt Through Time. And while I wasn't in love with it, ReZero is super popular as well. But I'm not talking about anime today. Could I have ever made a video about time loops without talking about Heaven Sent? Is that something that I, a childhood Doctor Who fan, could have done? I really don't think so, because when I think of time loops, this story is at the forefront of my mind. I don't even know how to begin talking about this in a way that feels like I'm doing it right. But I guess, right now, before we talk about Heaven Sent, we need some context. We need to first quickly go over the previous episode, Face the Raven, as well as some baseline Doctor Who lore for those who may need it. I'll try to be quick. Doctor Who, since 1963, has been about a humanoid alien who simply refers to themselves as the Doctor. Their species is a fictional one called a Time Lord, and they're from the fictional planet Gallifrey, where they stole a time machine to run off and have adventures. Time Lords have the unique ability to regenerate every living cell in their body when faced with a fatal condition, essentially cheating death. Any Time Lord can do this 12 times for a total of 13 bodies, incarnations, faces, whatever term you prefer. However, this process called regeneration was created in the 60s as an in-universe explanation to keep the show going, with the first actor to portray the Doctor falling ill. Basically, what I'm saying is that even though rules were established to keep the Doctor from regenerating infinitely, the writers are probably going to continue finding ways to give the Doctor more regenerations because of the real-life want to have other actors take on the role. While the Doctor has been both male and female in the past, in the story I'm talking about today, the character is portrayed by Scottish actor Peter Capaldi, so I'll be referring to the Doctor as he for the rest of the video. Not unlike Supernatural, Doctor Who follows a somewhat anthological nature. There's typically overarching lore for a season, but for the most part, stories are self-contained and told in either 1 or 2 episodes. The Doctor and whoever his current traveling companions may be go on adventures around space and time, traveling in the Doctor's spaceship called the TARDIS, encountering various aliens and economies and the like. The TARDIS is a Time Lord spaceship that once camouflaged itself as a police phone box back in the first episode in 1963, but the camouflage system got stuck on that one. That's why the blue police box is now the iconic ship you see all over nerd culture. And that should cover base knowledge. Now let's get into proper context. Season 9, Episode 10 of the 2005 reboot of Doctor Who is called Face the Raven. The 12th Doctor and his current best friend, Clara Oswald, receive a phone call from an acquaintance they met a season prior. This man's name is Rigsy, and he's discovered a tattoo on his neck that he doesn't remember getting that is apparently counting down. What they ultimately find is a hidden street in London filled with refugee aliens who just want to live peacefully. Another character they've met before, Ashildr, has become the mayor of this little community, and they are the one who gave Rigsy the tattoo. The tattoo, called a chronolock, is basically their way of passing justice in the community. Ashildr applies the chronolock, and it counts down their time to live. Rigsy is being framed for a murder he did not commit, but this is all just a trap for the Doctor. Some unknown entity has essentially blackmailed Ashildr into doing this. They gave up the Doctor for the safety of the hidden community.
I do as they tell me and the street is safe.
The plan goes like this. Rigsy gets a strange tattoo, he gets scared and calls the Doctor shows up to help, they take the key to the TARDIS so he can't escape, the Doctor is forced to put on a teleport bracelet, Ashildr removes the chronolock from Rigsy, and the unknown blackmailers get the Doctor delivered to them. Most of this comes to fruition, except for one little thing. Ashildr makes contracts with an entity known as a quantum shade in order to pass justice through the chronolocks. The specific quantum shade Ashildr contracts is called the Raven, because it takes the form of a raven. Quantum shades hunt their targets indefinitely once marked and can find them regardless of their location in space or time. Ashildr made this contract knowing that once everything is said and done, they could remove the chronolock from Rigsy because of their direct involvement with the mark. However, we learn in this episode that a chronolock can be passed from one individual to another. At the end of the day, though, someone has to face the Raven. Clara Oswald is the Doctor's traveling companion in this story, and she has been since season 7 with the previous incarnation of the Doctor, portrayed by Matt Smith.
All of time and space right outside those doors.
Is this actually what you do? Do you just crook your finger and people just jump in your snog box and fly away?
It is not a snog box.
I'll be the judge of that.
Clara is an upbeat presence in the show.
Hello?
It's me.
Yes, it's you. Who's this?
She's exactly the girl next door type that is so refreshing when portrayed well.
Doctor Who?
Oh, yeah. Ooh. I never realised how much I enjoy hearing that said out loud. Thank you.
Okay.
Hey, no!
I personally found her character to be a wonderful blend of smart, silly, flirty, and kind.
How long have you been there?
Longer than you would like.
Okay.
Are you going to look that terrified when you take me out for a drink?
With everything she experiences traveling with the Doctor for 3 seasons, she develops this bravado, almost as if she herself is as indestructible as the Doctor seems to be.
I'm the Doctor. You can call me Clara.
In an attempt to buy time or cheat the system, Clara convinces Rigsy to pass the chronolock to her.
I've always wanted a tattoo. You know, something small, discreet.
What she didn't know is that by doing so, she cuts Ashildr out of the contract with the quantum shade. Therefore, Ashildr is now completely powerless to remove the chronolock. The Doctor will save her. The Doctor has to save her. He always does. This is what the Doctor would have done. She's sure of it.
Clara, you didn't!
There's a way out. There's always a way out.
No.
Face the Raven aired on November 21st, 2015. At that time, I was 13 years old, and I did not think this would be the episode where we say goodbye to Clara. And then, it just happened. I don't think it had that much of an impact on 13-year-old me, but all these years and one rewatch of Capaldi's era later, I think I loved Clara. The showrunner at the time, Stephen Moffat, was a bit dramatic with how he wrote his characters and their overarching plot lines. He was in charge of running the 11th and 12th Doctor's eras. The first of the Doctor's traveling companions he wrote was given the grandiose title, The Girl Who Waited. The 11th Doctor's first proper story being about him crash landing into the backyard of a lonely little girl, him promising to take her to the stars, and then disappearing. She waited her entire childhood for the Raggedy Man and his blue box to return, but due to a mishap with the TARDIS, instead of the starry-eyed girl he knew, he was met with a jaded, grown woman.
No, I can't be 6 months late. I said 5 minutes. I promised.
This is the origin of Amy Pond, and I love her and this episode.
Hello. I'm the Doctor. Basically, run.
Clara is another example of Moffat's grandiose, almost fairy tale-like storytelling. She's known by one other alias, the Impossible Girl. But this is a video about time loops. We're supposed to be talking about Heaven Sent, so we really don't have the time to go over the story of the Impossible. Clara Oswald's first appearance in Doctor Who was actually really interesting. Jenna Coleman, Clara's real-life actress, took on the role of a side character named Oswin Oswald, a human who, at some point, was converted into a Dalek. She helped the Doctor and his at-the-time best friends, Amy and Rory, to escape the Dalek asylum. The Doctor tried to save her, but I guess you can't unbecome a Dalek. Right. I never mentioned what a Dalek is. They're bad. That's all you need to know. They're bad. So Oswin Oswald the Dalek appears in the first episode of Season 7, but then 5 episodes later when Amy and Rory exit the show, can't talk about that or I'll cry, the ever-gorgeous Jenna Coleman reappears in the Christmas special called The Snowmen. This time she plays Clara Oswald, a governess/barmaid from Victorian England, her true character in the series. But not really. This second Clara's full name is Clara Oswin Oswald, and is the first time the Doctor actually sees Clara's face. But before she can become his traveling companion, she dies. No, like, seriously. They go through this whole plot where there's evil ice people and Strax the potato guy is there, but then she falls off a cloud and fucking dies at the end of the episode. Which is how the Doctor makes the connection between her and Oswin the Dalek because of her middle name on her tombstone.
I never saw her face the first time with the Daleks, but her voice, it was the same voice twice, and she died both times. The same woman.
But why are there two characters with the names Oswin and Oswald showing up so relatively close to each other, and why are they both portrayed by the same actress? And why am I just now realizing that Jenna Coleman is exactly my type? I mean, I used to think I didn't really have a type, but these questions, sans that last one, are essentially why the Doctor ended up calling Clara the Impossible Girl. It was the insane mystery of why there seemed to be more than one of her scattered across space and time. In the episode that follows The Snowmen, The Bells of St. John, the Doctor, convinced that she must be alive in some other time period,
Is it an evil spirit?
It's a woman.
finds a version of Clara in the present day of 2013.
Clara Oswin Oswald.
Just Clara Oswald. What was that middle one?
Do you remember me?
No? Should I? Who are you?
They do an episode plot about people getting turned into walking Wi-Fi stations, I think. I don't remember this one, but the Doctor saves Clara from that and invites her to join him. To which she actually denies because she wants to think about it, and it's only in the next episode that she becomes his true next traveling companion. The doctor continues to investigate her strange-seeming origin with no real luck. All signs point to Clara just being a normal human woman. In the season finale, The Name of the Doctor, we finally get our answers. Basically, this entity called the Great Intelligence enters the Doctor's timeline in order to rewrite the Doctor's history. But Clara also enters the Doctor's timeline. In doing so, shattering herself into an undeterminable number of fragments that appear all throughout different times in the Doctor's life. These copies of her live their own full lives, explaining the existence of Oswin, who was human before becoming a Dalek, and Clara Oswin Oswald, who was raised in Victorian times. The Doctor enters his own timeline to save Clara Prime, and they continue on. With the mystery of the Impossible Girl solved, Clara is now just Clara. She helps the 3 versions of the Doctor save Gallifrey in the 50th anniversary special, The Day of the Doctor, but soon, Clara and the Doctor arrive at a snag in their friendship when the 11th Doctor dies. Matt Smith's portrayal of the 11th Doctor, I think, can best be described with the word rambunctious.
I've still got legs. Good. Arms, hands, fingers, lots of fingers.
Compared to the calm of previous Doctors, 11 had the tendency to be loud, frantic, silly, or goofy. It was these exact traits that drew me to him as a kid. This strange man who does not at all care how strange he is.
It's not like 11 is incapable of being calm. He's not some kind of Tasmanian devil constantly bouncing off the walls. He just has a very infectious way of being excited that often makes both those around him and the audience excited as well.
As a kid, and even now, I find it refreshing to see a man who acts like this also be considered the coolest guy in the room.
Well, we've got comfy chairs, did I mention?
We have no need of comfy chairs.
I made him say comfy chairs.
It's this version of the Doctor that Clara loves, platonically, and matches with her own energy.
You're young. Shouldn't you be doing, with the young things?
What, you mean like you, for instance? Damn, boy.
No.
So you can imagine the buzzkill when the Doctor she knows and loves snaps into a 55-year-old man complaining about his kidney color. The relationship between Clara and 12 began rocky as Clara felt like she didn't know him anymore. The same personality with its stats shuffled around presents a different experience, a different person to be with. But this didn't last long. The two of them develop a very strong, genuinely platonic friendship as Clara becomes romantically involved with one of her coworkers throughout Season 8. One of the major themes of that season being Clara's struggle to balance her life saving the world with the Doctor and her normal life with her new boyfriend. Clara first learned to love the Doctor as sort of a will-they-won't-they friend with 11, but she eventually learned to love the Doctor as family with 12. That friendship continuing to blossom into Season 9 until... Oh. Yeah. I guess it's time to talk about it. Heaven Sent picks up exactly where Face the Raven left off. Clara has just died, the Doctor is angry, and the teleport bracelet has just been activated. The Doctor finds himself teleported to the inside of a stone castle on the sea. It's massive, with many different layers in various rooms. He seems to be entirely alone, until he notices a strange monster watching him. He's being live-streamed seemingly through the creature's eyes to various monitors throughout the castle. It's following him. After wandering aimlessly for a while, still bitter about the loss of Clara,
Just watch my best friend die in agony. My day can't get any worse. Let's see what we can do about yours.
and continuing to avoid the creature following him, the Doctor eventually finds a grave and digs until he hits something. I can't be sure if it's meant to be a coffin or just a large slab of stone, but engraved in it are the words, "I am in 12." When the Doctor considers the fact that the rooms of the castle are numbered, this creates the ultimate goal of finding room 12. The Doctor also comes to the realization around this time that when he confesses truths he's never told before, two things happen. One, the creature following him freezes for a short period of time, and two, the castle shifts, and rooms that were previously dead ends are essentially unlocked.
Another detail worth noting is that every room resets itself to its original state after enough time has passed.
It tidies up after itself. Automated room service.
We don't know how long the Doctor spends living here, but eventually, after much searching, he does find room 12. Not before he returns to the first room, however. The room with the teleporter that brought him here in the first place. He explores this room, unlike when he first arrived, and sees a skull connected to the teleporter's electricity source and the word bird written in nearby sand. He questions what bird could have to do with anything.
Are the birds here?
Soon after, he finds room 12, only for it to be a dead end. The Doctor makes a final confession and enters room 12. Within is a wall of asbantium, a fictional mineral said to be roughly 400 times harder than diamond, that is 20 feet thick. After discovering the wall of asbantium, he recalls seeing the word bird, and it's at this point that the Doctor realizes what's going on. This leads to one of my favorite scenes in the episode.
That's what I remember! What was that? What was exactly that?
The Doctor frantically paces around this mental fabrication of the TARDIS, complaining to Clara about how unfair this whole situation is. He whines like a little kid.
Can I just lose? Just this once!
The scene ultimately crescendos with the Doctor finally allowing himself to feel the sorrow within him.
Whatever I do, you still won't be there.
Here at his lowest, his manifestation of Clara animates. The memory of Clara convinces him to keep pushing forward. She essentially tells him that loss is synonymous with living life. After this, he picks himself up and begins his escape by punching the wall of asbantium. He isn't even making a dent. As the creature approaches from behind, the Doctor recites a folktale by the Brothers Grimm. The story he references is a real one by the real-life Brothers Grimm. It tells a short story of a country monarch and an intelligent young laborer. The Emperor tells the young shepherd's boy that if he can answer his 3 questions showing true signs of intelligence, he will take the boy in as his own, sharing his wealth and notoriety with the boy wholeheartedly. The Doctor chooses to focus on the Emperor's final question, as it's what inspires his actions. Before the Doctor can even get halfway through the tale, the creature attacks him, rendering a fatal blow. However, Time Lords are not like other living beings. Even putting regeneration aside, it can take days for a Time Lord to die once fatally wounded. And so, the Doctor begins to crawl. After a day and a half, he reaches the teleporter room. In his mind, talking to Clara, he explains that since every room resets itself, there's a copy of him still in the teleporter. By burning himself as a source of energy, he gets it to activate. With his final breaths, he scratches the word bird into nearby sand. With this, he's begun a new loop. His body fades to dust as he's replaced by a new version of himself.
Yo guys, it's me, Charlie. Hey, did that guy just turn into sand?
Who's teleported here in the exact condition he was in when he first got here 7,000 years ago. What follows is a montage of scenes playing out the events of the episode we just watched, scored by one of my all-time favorite original soundtracks. Thousands of years pass. The clips of the episode get faster as millions of years go by. As we watch an ungodly amount of time pass, now and then we see that the Doctor is very, very slowly making progress through the wall of asbantium. As he progresses deeper into the crystalline wall, he earns a tad more distance from the creature and is able to tell a tiny bit more of that folktale he started. This monologue can be a little difficult to understand with the soundtrack blaring and the clip montage interrupting Peter's lines to show that more time has passed, so I'm going to recite the Doctor's words myself in a clear diction. The Brothers Grimm, lovely fellows. They're on my darts team. According to them, there's this emperor, and he asked the shepherd's boy, how many seconds are in eternity?
And the shepherd's boy says, "There's this mountain of pure diamond. It takes an hour to climb it and an hour to go around it. Every 100 years, a little bird comes and sharpens its beak on the diamond mountain. And when the entire mountain is chiseled away, the first second of eternity will have passed." Now, you may think that's a hell of a long time. Personally, I think that's a hell of a bird. As the Doctor breaks through the Asbantium, he steps foot onto his home planet of Gallifrey. The world, the castle, the creature behind him fall away and are absorbed into the Doctor's confession dial, which he gave to Ashildr as part of the deal in the previous episode. The Time Lords trapped him in it in order to get answers about a being known as the Hybrid. I've wondered to myself many times, why do I love Heaven Sent? Why is this one of those episodes that I still vaguely remember watching the day it came out? Well, for starters, the writing is clever in its execution. For example, there's a scene where the Doctor is cornered by the creature and he grabs a stool. You think he's going to use the stool for self-defense, but knowing that this character is much more a runner than a fighter, you wonder where this could go. He tosses a stool out the window behind him, and almost immediately follows the stool by jumping out the window himself. As he's falling, he enters what he calls the storeroom of his mind, which is visualized as the inside of his TARDIS. He says that in situations like jumping out of a window, he likes to retreat into his mind and pretend like he's already survived the encounter as if he were boastfully telling Clara a story of his past. In his mind, he explains that he threw the stool in order to both confirm that the castle is on water and to listen for how long it takes to hear it splash. That crucial information gives him a rough idea of whether or not he can survive the fall. It's clever. There's no way you figured that was what he was doing the first time you watched him throw the stool, but it makes plenty of sense. Knowing how high up he is means he can risk making this play. It's also revealed here that this is something he's been thinking about. Just a minute before all this, he picked up a flower and started casually dropping its petals on the floor. The episode doesn't draw attention as to why he's doing this when it happens, only when it's revealed that he's been testing the local gravity. Clara has just died, yet there's a mural in one of the rooms that the Doctor deduces is
old. Very old, possibly very, very old.
There are thousands of skulls in the water surrounding the castle. The Doctor, on 2 occasions before the reveal, says that the stars are out of place, like a bunch of time has passed. There's a pair of clothes identical to the Doctor's that are hung to dry by a fire, conveniently in the first place he arrives after jumping in water. When you don't know there's a time loop involved, these oddities only confuse you, along with the Doctor.
No, that's not right.
On a lot of levels, one should feel like the episode is less interesting knowing the twist, but I personally just don't. The beauty of the episode is felt through experiencing it rather than simply knowing the facts about it. This story is unlike the ones that precede it, mainly in the sense that it only features one character for the vast majority of the runtime. The Doctor is entirely alone, with literally no other characters to bounce off of. Peter Capaldi's skills at acting are put brilliantly on display through body language, striking facial expressions, emotionally charged monologuing, and wonderfully executed voiceover. The mysteries of why the Doctor has been teleported here, how can that thing from his past even exist, why does this place seem to exist to torture specifically him, and how is he going to escape, drive the narrative forward. I think atmosphere is something this episode really nails. Everything from the use of voiceover to the score creates a feeling, a vibe that only this episode has. There's a profound sense of loneliness to this place. This massive castle with no life to fill it. It hardly even feels like an episode of Doctor Who because it exudes its own unique aura as a piece of media. Nothing else feels like watching Heaven Sent. Without a doubt, this is my favorite episode of Doctor Who. The highest praise that I can give it is that it's just interesting. From start to finish, it keeps my attention. It never feels like it reaches a lull. It doesn't matter that you already know the plot twist of it being a time loop. In fact, it makes it slightly better upon rewatch. The clothes by the fire, the skulls in the water, all make sense. The castle shifts and the creature pauses upon confession because he's inside the confession dial. The stars haven't moved, and he hasn't time traveled. He's just been here a very long time. Look, I could continue harping on about the writing, the cinematography, Capaldi's performance, or Murray Gold's fantastic score, but then this would turn into every other review/analysis about Heaven Sent, of which there are many. It's a fantastic episode of television, objectively speaking, but to me, it's more than that. At one point in my life, this was my favorite show ever, but times change, and so must I. When I first caught up to the series, it was in the final throes of Matt Smith's era. He became my doctor, and Clara, well, naturally I had a crush on Clara. And so, when Matt Smith regenerated, it was like half of the show disappeared. For 10-year-old me, waiting for new episodes of this show, seeing this specific pair run around and save the day was a big part of the appeal. I loved Eleven.
Eyes on the top, look at me. I wear it and I don't care. That's why it's cool.
I loved Clara.
You remind me of someone.
I'm not her, okay? If you want me to travel with you, that's fine. But as me, I'm not a bargain basement stand-in for somebody else. I'm not going to compete with a ghost.
I had a tough time adjusting to the shift to Peter Capaldi, but Clara kept us grounded. She struggles with that shift in the show the same way the fans did in real life. Soon enough, the ball kept rolling and the show continued to flourish. Peter Capaldi's era gave us so much more of Clara. We got to see so many different sides of her.
I didn't know. I certainly hoped.
Okay, this. You see, this. This is why I'm leaving you. This, because you lied to me again. And now you've made me lie. You've made me your accomplice.
But then Face the Raven came along, and it was like, surely she's not gone for good. And then Heaven Sent followed as a pretty definitive nail in the coffin. The reason I chose to go over Clara's background is because I want you to watch Heaven Sent, but I don't want you to watch it without the most important piece of context. That being the wonderful character that Clara Oswald was. Down to her last moments, she was just this person who could never quite be 100% sure that what she was doing was right, or that she was making the right decisions. But she trucked along pretending like she knew what she was doing. She was so human in that way. And I just love her.
What's that look for?
It's the look you get when I'm about to slap you! Oh. The Daleks are evil after all. Everything makes sense. The Doctor is right.
Daleks are evil. Irreversibly so. That's what we just learned.
No, Doctor, that is not what we just learned.
And in retrospect, what is Heaven Sent if not the ultimate send-off for her character? Heaven Sent is the true end to her story. It's the Doctor grieving her loss. Yeah, I know the next episode technically revives her, but the point is that they were writing her out of the show for good. And with her gone, it was like the other half of the show slipped away. Pretty much every detail of the show that was there when I got into it was gone, with even River Song having her final televised appearance in the Christmas special between seasons 9 and 10. Now, season 10 was actually pretty good, and has one of my favorite Doctor Who stories with its 2-part finale. Peter Capaldi's final episode is another of my favorites, and his regeneration scene is one of my favorite scenes from any show ever.
Oh, there it is. Silly old universe. The more I save it, the more it needs saving.
But when I want to remember my love for Doctor Who, I come back to Heaven Sent. Heaven Sent represents my grief for Doctor Who. As if my love for this show is trapped in a time loop of its own, I'll rewatch this episode to remember Clara, to remember the Doctor, to remember being 13 years old watching this for the first time, to grieve for times long gone. I want to end this video by talking about one very specific moment in Heaven Sent. This moment takes place late in the episode when the Doctor has just remembered that he's in a time loop. We see inside his mind as he paces about, yelling to the manifestation of Clara he's created in his head, saying things like,
I can't keep doing this, Clara. Why is it always me? Why is it never everybody else's turn?
Clara resurfaces the question, "How are you going to win?" on the blackboard, to which the Doctor exasperatedly shouts,
It's not fair! Clara, it's just not fair! Why can't I just lose?
and the response the Doctor's own mind comes up with is this. It's just Clara standing in front of the blackboard with the word "no" written in capital letters and an exclamation point. This episode can easily be interpreted as an allegory for grief or depression. With that in mind, I find it so touching, so powerful, that here at his lowest point, when he wants to simply throw in the towel, he asks himself, why can't I just stop trying? Why can't I just let the bad feelings win? Why can't I just lose? And instead of providing himself an explanation through either logic or emotion, the response is just no. Giving up isn't an option. It was never an option. Time loops are so interesting to me. Every time I encounter an example of this type of storytelling, deep in my soul I say, hell yeah, and I let the writers take me on a journey. As we've seen in media I've presented today, a time loop could be used to create a tragic meta-narrative that I definitely did not completely make up. A time loop could be used to push a character to their mental limits, or it could be used to explore the concept of perseverance and the indomitable human, Time Lord spirit. Are we going to explore themes of free will, or grief, or the consequences of your actions? I don't know, and that's exciting every time. I love how the casual phrases the other characters say become iconic as the main character repeats those moments multiple times. I think time loops have such incredible storytelling potential, and hopefully I've done a good job with my examples of conveying that thought. Look, I've been trying to end this video because I've been working on it for longer than I thought I would be. But so far, I haven't been able to write an ending that I feel good about. When I talked to my older brother about this, he suggested that maybe I simply don't have enough to say about the topic of time loops. And I had to honestly consider that he could be right. Which has led to me rewriting this ending from scratch again. So, I guess what I'm really trying to say is, if this next part sucks, it's his fault, not mine. To me, time loops represent life. Maybe this says more about me than anything, but life feels perpetually repetitive. It often feels like absolutely nothing of note happens on the day-to-day. And you know what that reminds me of? This is footage of me trying to beat a boss in the game Cuphead with a perfect A+ rank. In order to achieve an A+, I have to beat the boss without taking damage, parry at least 3 of its attacks, make sure to use a certain number of special attacks, and finish the fight as fast as possible. As you'll quickly notice, this is not a particularly easy task. You're seeing me reset the game over and over every time I fail one of the A+ criteria. If it wasn't obvious where I'm going with this, the constant resetting reminds me of time loops. Here's what I want you to do. Imagine that life is like a boss fight. The concept of life itself transformed into a physical being. It's mocking you, wearing a devilish grin. It's throwing things at you, doing everything that it can to keep you from fighting back. And you are exhausted. But here's the thing about video game boss fights and life itself. All the repetition, all the monotony, it's not worthless. With boss fights, what is the benefit of constantly restarting the fight over and over? Well, with time, you start to memorize the boss's patterns. You start to recognize certain safe zones. You start maximizing your damage windows. And eventually, if you keep at it, you will win. It's so easy to slip into this mindset that nothing ever changes and that your life is like a time loop, just constantly repeating the same monotonous days. But time loop stories remind us that this is not true. Even if it doesn't always feel like it, you are always growing and learning and memorizing the shitty, unfair boss patterns of life. And this is what time loops ultimately mean to me. Despite how pointless and arbitrary the constant repetition of everything seems to be, as long as you aren't giving up completely, you are still moving forward.
It's coming to a close, I guess I should know that I'm never gonna see you again in a place that sells vintage clothes.
So I don't usually do these outro segments, but I thought maybe I'd start doing them because I really just wanted to say thank you to anyone who's ever shown support to this channel. I don't know if this video is going to get a lot of views. Sometimes my videos do and sometimes they don't. And if this one does, hey, how's it going? Thanks for checking this video out. I hope you liked it. If you made it this far, thank you so much, so much. I put so much time into these videos, at least, in recent times. And I just pour so much of myself into them that I don't know if it'll really be relatable to other people, but it seems like in the past it has been, or if it's not relatable, at least just interesting to people. I'm still basically just budget Super Eye Patch Wolf, but that's fine with me, The funny thing about that is that, even though he is a huge inspiration to me, he wouldn't make this video the same way, The goal with my channel has always sort of been to take these things that have emotionally impacted me and just explore it, just understand why, think about why I like this thing, understand myself a little bit more, and maybe get better at, media analysis along the way or, something like that. And while I've had a lot of fun doing that with my videos, I don't always feel like I have something to say, and I don't know, that's really important to me. I don't want to just make content, I don't want to put something out that anybody else could have put out. I want to make sure that it's me, that it's that I'm leaving a part of myself behind with each of these videos. I think that is the goal. I don't know when that became the goal, because it definitely didn't start like that, but that is the goal now. And the problem is that I just don't know when I'll be able to ever promise content to anybody who might want it. As far as I know, this could be the last video I ever upload, And I mean, it probably won't be, but it could be, Any one of these could be the last one, because I just don't know when I feel like I'm gonna have something to say, when I feel like I'm gonna have an urge to make one of these again. So unfortunately, if you did like this video and you want more, I don't have a good answer for you. The next video will come when it comes, if it ever comes. So I guess subscribe? And with that, thank you all again, and I'm out.